Reminder to everyone who might have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat box. While we've still got our brains on Noah's presentation, we have a question here from Franco that says, does this contravene the preservation of historical sites? OIR highlight this fact to us as NASA recommendations to spacefaring entities. Noah, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to understand space environment, we have to visit one of these sites. I mean, I think this is a science experiment waiting for us to visit. Yeah, Heather's right. We 50 years ago, it didn't really matter going to visit. There was, Apollo 12 did its thing. I don't see this as disrupting. It's not like we're going to build a Starbucks on top of the Apollo 11 site. It's not like we're demeaning the importance of the site. We're actually using the science experiment that was created for us 50 years ago to actually get something out of it. So I don't see it as contravening the preservation of a historical site. I see it as actually just last weekend, I walked through George Washington's house. That's not destroying a historical site. That's actually taking advantage of its presence to learn something. And if we can't do that, then peace. I'm fine. Thank you, Mark. It feels good to finally be validated like that. And Heather wants a break, so. Okay,
great. Thanks for that. We had a question early on for some of our other speakers. This is from Dave Blewett. What are some of the pros and cons of measuring heat flow in situ versus an orbital heat flow radiometer?
I think that one was directed at Seichi, who had to leave, but if there's any other geophysicist who wants to chime in, and they might have to do it in the chat. I don't know what the unmuting capabilities are here. If no one has anything, we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Rolling back through the chat, see what else came in here.
Yeah, I'm just rolling back through as well.
Do either of our speakers on INA want to address this comment from Phil? Magma foam is not the only alternative for INA. Pete Schultz suggested gas venting through regolith. If so, geochronology will not help as ages are not reset by venting. So if either Catherine or Mark want to comment on that.
Yeah, great. I can address that. Yeah, there have been quite a few suggested formation hypotheses for INA, and in my opinion, we really don't know. There's certainly no consensus, and personally, I'm not really totally convinced by any of the hypotheses. And I think, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point about, if it's sort of ancient volcanism that has been modified. But I think, if we could show that INA is in fact 3 billion years old in terms of the rocks, then maybe I think that would support the Pete Schultz hypothesis. It might, I guess you would need additional geologic studies to determine then between that hypothesis and the magmatic foam. So you definitely have to have more than one objective to really understand both the age and how it formed. I don't know if Mark wants to chime in as well.
Yeah, can I pitch in here? So, there's I mean that's the reason I was really getting at this fact that we need centimeter scale stereo imaging so we can look at the landforms that we know that are there and the ones that we don't know that are there because they're too small to see. And from the LROC data, we have hints that we see primary effusive landforms, but we don't know for sure. But if we get that pixel scale in stereo, we could also look at any indications if there were recent venting that they should have a signature on the surface of some sort. And that was where, since we only have 5 minutes, I wasn't able to get into that. But, I was trying to intimate that we don't know when we get below this 50 centimeter per pixel scale what we're going to see. And I agree 100% with Catherine just said, is that none of the hypotheses are convincing right now because we just don't have the data to test them. That's it.
Okay, just a reminder, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We've still got a little bit of time to have a discussion here.
Now, there was some discussion early on, at least in the chat, about PSRs and whether we could drive or walk into them. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. I know, Caitlin, you chimed in briefly. I'm just trying to see who else was part of that.
Yeah, as far as walking into PSRs, that's still a level of risk that we're not quite there yet. It's not just temperatures we need to be aware of. It's different kinds of chemistry that may hamper on some of the materials as far as clothing goes, and certainly some of the tools. So it's a challenge, but certainly one that would be better for rovers and other kind of in situ technologies.
There's a risk associated with driving into a PSR, even with a robotic rover, in that if it glitches while it's in the PSR and it takes a while to sort it out, you're draining your battery while you're doing that. And if you don't get it sorted out and get out of there before your battery drains, then you're dead. So.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Illumination would certainly be an issue. There's all sorts of issues.
Yeah, in the space power LSIC user focus group, we've talked about beaming power to rovers inside of PSRs would be a mitigation for that.
Awesome.
Which you could do with a laser on like a nearby lander or another rover or something.
Okay, a couple questions have come up for Tim, and I know you started to answer in the chat. Why don't we go ahead and talk about them? Would your neutral site, would you prefer it to be in an area with or without magnetic anomalies?
I think without magnetic anomalies to start with, precisely because we have phenomena like the lunar swirls, where you can see that there's a change in the albedo. There's clearly some kind of local history that is altering the site and altering the way it's responding to the space environment. So for that particular feature, I would certainly want to choose someplace blander than that. But a number of the other things that we did see on here could be accomplished at the same location. It's just then you run into that issue that you have such limited resources on a CLPS mission that you can't do everything. You have to be focused in some way, and I would like to focus on the global phenomena that affect all surfaces, and we can do the other things also elsewhere.
Great, thanks. And we have a question that just came in for Noah from Ben Greenhagen. So Noah, you mentioned some great pyroclastic deposits as priorities. Are there any pyroclastic deposits that you might suggest we de-emphasize?
I would need to think on that, Ben. I mean, that's a really tough question. I'm not sure de-emphasize. Let me volley the question back to you. De-emphasize why? I'm just going to blabber on, but I don't have a good immediate response to that. All pyroclastic deposits are great, and so de-emphasizing one, means that, well, I don't have a good answer for that, and I'm sorry for spilling time. Although we just got a tap dance here, so Ben, go ahead.
I can just pop in. I was just trying to get across the idea that there's lots of pyroclastics, lots of places in the moon, and it seems like it might be easy to say, oh, we're going there, and there's a pyroclastic nearby, so let's check that box, and that's our pyroclastic deposit. Yeah. And it could be similar with like the new craters and things like that too. Like, are there specific characteristics that you feel it's really important to get to if you're going to do a pyroclastic mission?
So I outlined 4 different pyroclastics that are broadly distributed, different formation mechanisms. I don't think there's no one pyroclastic deposit that summarizes all pyroclastic deposits. So we cannot just check a box. Hey, we went to one pyroclastic deposit, therefore we know all pyroclastic deposits. That won't work. That won't answer the mail. I really do think it has to be multiple pyroclastics to get the sense of mantle heterogeneity, to get a sense of different eruption styles. It's I think we build up a catalog of different pyroclastics. We've sampled multiple pyroclastic deposits through the Apollo program, and so adding to that catalog through multiple deposits, even ones that are incidental on other missions, is incredibly valuable. But again, it's not a single checkbox. That pyroclastics done, never have to revisit that again, would be a mistake. But Ben, let me get back to you on thinking about that. But I would never de-emphasize any pyroclastic deposits because they're all so wonderful and unique. And Tim is laughing at me, but that's not any different from any other day.
You got to love all your children, Noah.
I think James came in and said, "Which one would you prioritize? What would be your favorite?" You're muted. Oh no, you're not muted. Sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm just.
It's a hard choice. Take your time.
Yeah. Well, look, Tim is going to talk about Aristarchus. Aristarchus is an incredibly important pyroclast deposit because you could accomplish multiple objectives at a single site. And so, maybe it's not a matter of picking one that's favorite, but, with a rover mission or a larger scale mission that you can do multiple things, check multiple lunar science boxes. The missions I was talking about was landing really just in the heart of a pyroclast deposit and understanding pyroclastics. But if you can rove and do and things, that might be really compelling. And so Aristarchus becomes, Aristarchus has been at the top of a list for 60 years. I see no reason why to take it off there. But that's just me. And I'm uncaffeinated and blabbering.
Got some interesting chat now about lunar volcanism campaigns.
Yeah.
Intrepid was an example given. I don't see any other questions coming in. Got some good chat going on, so that's great. If there are no last minute questions, we can go ahead and move to the lightning talks just a couple of minutes early.
Actually, Ryan, if it's okay,
yeah.
I have one follow-up question.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Noah.
We've got some time.
Yep.
Yep.
When we're talking about prioritizing all the pyroclastic deposits and really trying to think about where we would want to eventually send landers and rovers to analyze them on the ground to understand more about them, do you think up to that point there's still some additional detailed remote sensing analysis and surveying that needs to be conducted that could help maybe narrow down specific locations, or is that like a whole different can of worms?
Well, yeah, we could spend the rest of the careers of every person on this call doing remote sensing of the moon, but at some point we got to go to the surface and start figuring things out from the surface. So I would never say, hey, we need to fly 3 more missions to go understand pyroclastic deposits. Lunar Trailblazer will add to the M-Cube story. We have an incredible wealth of information from LRO. At some point, we have to pick one. Now, again, there's the volatile bearing pyroclastic deposits that Shuai Li and Ralph Millikan have found. Those obviously are compelling targets from a whole volatile standpoint. I'll stand by what I said. We can send remote sensing missions, and those are very valuable, but I would not say we need 3 more missions with these sort of instruments to go and understand pyroclastic deposits to ask the right questions. We know the right questions to ask. Let's get there and touch and analyze and bring back these pyroclastic deposits. Otherwise, we'll just spend 50 more years arguing about whether we go to this place or this place. We just got to do it at some point. And hopefully CLPS provides that venue, not just for touching them and analyzing, but let's get them back. And Tim's point is correct. Yes, it's not to say that we don't need more remote sensing data, but I think specifically for pyroclastics, we can study a lot more, but we shouldn't wait for more data to figure out where to go and what to do. So I don't want to sound like I'm demeaning future robotic orbital missions. I'm not. But at some level, to understand pyroclastics, we know where to go. Let's just go. Let's stop just waiting. And yes, let's get the lunar regolith under our robotic nails. And if I've got 1 minute and 10 seconds left, I'll keep going. But I think everybody wants to get to the lightning round talks.
Yeah. Well, great discussion. If anyone has any other questions for the speakers, feel free to reach out to them and follow up.